What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Fathom Beyond Sunday podcast.
Yes.
Kyle and Christina back at it, talking about the Lord.
Yeah, welcome back.
It's been a minute, but we've got an exciting new series coming your way on the names of God. We're simply calling it Names. Yeah. Super excited to get in here. This is another one of those topics. We talked about this. We're like, why do we keep doing this? Pick these massive topics like world religions and let's study them all and understand them all. And now it's like on the names of God. And the more you get in, the more it's like we don't know what we're talking about.
The names of God, all thousands, right? Like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, but
we can't do that.
We're going to help you take some land, get some territory, really come to know God. And I think the beauty of this is, one, we're going to dive into kind of the narrative story of God revealing himself and it's really all about his character, right?
Right. Who God says he is and how he follows that up.
Yeah. So it's all about names. And so God's names and his name is not like our name. And we're going to be exploring that.
Yeah, like our names are pretty basic. Mine and yours in particular.
Basic white girl, basic white boy, for sure.
Christina Scott. Kyle Nelson. They're like probably thousands, like they probably really are throughout the history of even like just the English language, that there have been thousands of Kyle Nelsons.
Right.
And thousands of Christina Scotts.
It makes you feel real small, doesn't it?
Yeah, just like, oh, another one.
I didn't know another Kyle for a really long time. Yeah, and then I did, and his name had like a cool spelling, and I was like, oh, he's way cooler than me.
Oh.
Yeah, Kiel.
Oh.
So that was a thing.
That's very different. I've never seen that before, and this is the first time I'm here. This is brand new information for me right now. There's lots of Christinas, and I started like right away in school. There were other Christinas, right? So like I was Christina F.
There's a lot of them around here.
Yeah, there really are.
There really are.
Oh my goodness.
But we're going to talk about our basic names. We're going to talk about the God's name and names that are anything but basic. They have gravitas is like the word that's coming to mind. Like
complexity and layers of nuance and continued growth and like layers of meaning, which is I think so similar to how we grow to know him, is like little by little. That he reveals himself more and more to us. And he does that with his names, like almost little by little with his people. I literally,
before I closed my Bible, before we were starting this podcast, I literally have somewhere in my devotional study where I wrote God talking about bringing it little by little. And I literally put little by little in the side of my Bible there. But excited to get into this series because I think what I've come to learn, and I think both of us, the more we get into this, we kind of joke about just feeling overwhelmed with everything because, one, we're studying like just brilliant scholars who have done a ton of work on this, and we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this connects to this and this connects to that. And so it's just a lot because you're really studying all of Scripture.
Right.
We're not studying one book or one chapter. We're studying all of Scripture. What has God revealed about the nature of his name and his character? And honestly, I'm just telling you, you're gonna be blown away as we go through this podcast. And it's just one of those that keeps kind of expanding your mind and your heart to just the goodness of God's character and choosing to reveal himself to us.
Right. It also, I think, we've said this at least, I don't know, a dozen times on this podcast, that we wish that we were like multilingual.
Yes, we want to be Hebrew scholars now.
We want that so badly. And Greek. Like I want to know Hebrew and Greek. I want them to be like deeply ingrained in me, where I just start speaking in a mashup of all of these languages to truly know the depth of the names of God. But I go back to English is my language, and so what can we pull and how can we translate that, and how can we wrestle through big ideas in other languages when we don't know them?
Yeah, I think one of the beautiful things we're going to be doing in this podcast series throughout it is really helping everyone go into the narrative of the story.
Right.
We're so used to reading in headlines, right? We live off of headlines.
Oh my goodness.
We know the story and then even when we read a story, we scroll a story.
We're skimming.
Looking for the headlines.
Yes.
And blog writers know this. And so they highlight that stuff because they know we ain't want to get time to read the whole article.
Right.
Well, we're doing our best to read the whole article and to take you into the story.
Right.
Not just the headlines, because what the story is going to uncover is that God's name is not really, it's not a name like any other. It's not basic. It does have that gravitas. It's set aside, but it's a multitude of names. And ultimately, God's name is associated with his character.
Yeah.
So God is revealing himself in a context to a people. Through his names. And he's revealing his character. And so as much as this series is really about the names of God and the name of God, I want you to know that it's really about the character of God.
Right.
And that's going to be the beauty that crystallizes so much for us.
I think that's the part that we want, like, for you to come away with is not just,
Absolutely.
oh, I know the definition or I know what this translates to exactly, but no, like what was God's purpose and his heart and his desire for people to know about him, his people to know about him.
Yeah. So I can't remember how many episodes we're doing on this. We're going to go until we...
So here's the reality of Fathom Beyond Sunday. Regularly, we have a plan, and then we divert from that plan.
For sure.
The plan right now is 8 episodes.
8 episodes is the plan. We also have not discussed much of our research together.
No, we haven't.
Not much.
No.
We did that intentionally.
Yes.
To just kind of hopefully make it a fun conversation.
Great.
And so, shall we begin?
Yes.
Shall we begin?
Episode 1.
Episode 1, I guess we have to start where it all starts.
Where it starts.
In the beginning.
In the beginning.
God. In the beginning, God. That's the first place we see the name of God in Genesis 1. And we're going to find all these different names. And so if you want to take notes, it's cool. Like take notes like in your phone or whatever and begin to connect it. But
does your podcast app let you bookmark like places where we're talking? Just like
know.
Put a little bookmark right here.
That.
Put a little bookmark right here. Come back to it.
Yeah, Audible does that, right?
Yeah.
You can do it in Audible. Well, there's so many like pages before I get to Genesis 1. It's like I know where it's at.
There's right.
Genesis 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and there we see the first name of God.
The first name of God, and there in the beginning, that name is it's so completely rich and crazy to me. Right there at the very beginning, this word Elohim is a plural word for God. So it's rendered in English God singular, but the word in Hebrew is a plural word for gods. And already the story begins.
Right.
Already the story begins because we're saying, like, we're seeing God created the heavens and the earth. But then in a little bit, we're going to see where they said, let us form man in our image, right? And so right away, Elohim, plural, gods.
Yeah, we begin to get these foreshadowing to Trinitarian theology that will be unpacked throughout Scripture.
Right.
Namely the Spirit of God, right there immediately. Like, okay, there's a plurality in God, in this one God that will be singular many times.
Yes. So, and that word is El. The beginning of this word Elohim is just El, God. But the reality is, in that time frame and even throughout Scripture, that wasn't a proper name like Kyle, capital K. For you, means this one person. That was used for just common word for God. For gods, lowercase g.
Yeah. So all the nations like surround that. So even as we think about, and I think again, thinking this in narrative terms, this is a nonfiction. It's a divinely inspired word. But when we think about it with narrative arc, it's like, oh, there's this unfolding of God choosing to reveal himself. And I think that's a key thing I always want to drill down is like what we know about God is because God has allowed us to know about him.
Right.
Him choosing to reveal himself. And one of the most prominent ways, it's not the only way, he does it through miracles, he does it through creation itself, he certainly does it through his son Jesus. But throughout the narrative, his name and his names are a significant way that he's revealing himself. And it's worth taking note of, worth us diving into. So it begins with Elohim, which again is a generic-ish term.
Right.
And as it unfolds, we're going to be like, we're going to come to understand that it's not just any old Elohim here.
Right.
We are talking about a capital E Elohim.
Right. The greatest Elohim.
Yeah, the greatest Elohim. Exactly. And so sometimes that same Elohim word will be translated with a lowercase g or gods with an S or capital G.
Right. God. Well, and so I am kind of like, I like statistics and I like numbers and I like these things. And so I actually looked up, I was like, okay, how many times do we see that in the Bible, that word Elohim? 2,606 times.
A lot.
In the Bible.
It's a lot. Really common use.
And 2,346 of those is as God, capital G, God.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about like about 250 times that it's translated and it doesn't mean the one true God, that it means these other different things. So you can see like that's actually kind of a lot, 250 times.
Yeah.
That it's translated some other way.
Absolutely.
And that shows that like real commonality of the culture of the time, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of, as we go through this podcast, you're going to have more questions. We're going to be digging into more stuff.
I have more questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's the God of creation will be distinguished, singular God in this Trinitarian, foreshadowing, if you will, of that robust theology. But so it really continues with Elohim God
for
throughout
several chapters, for a long minute, actually.
Yeah. For a good part of the Bible, did you find like what's the next time that we get something other than Elohim? Do you know? I'm just
yeah.
asking.
So it is when God reveals Himself in Exodus to Moses as the I am God, tell them I am sent you. We get that word and that we are gonna talk about in this podcast. We're gonna talk about the name of God, Yahweh. That is used in the writing of Genesis, but it's not. It's not in this format quite. It's not saying that God has chosen this name for Himself or has revealed this name to us. It is just in there as God.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. So this will kind of be, if you're carrying it kind of through again narratively. Genesis 1, 2, creation, Genesis 3, the fall. I call it the fallout between 4 to 11 in Genesis, and then Genesis chapter 12, God's establishing new, the old covenant or the Abrahamic covenant, rather. And that's kind of beginning to where we begin to get into some other names of God that we will get into later in this series. But not today.
Not today.
I think we want to go ahead and fast forward to Yahweh.
Yeah.
And because it's significant. It is, like you said, it's a major marker of God revealing Himself. And so we're going to go back and we're going to fill in some gaps there in Genesis, how God's revealing Himself, because there's some significant ones there.
Absolutely.
As well. And so we're fast forwarding intentionally because just of this major moment in Exodus 3, as God is revealing Himself as Yahweh. This is a significant one. And in our next episode, we will get into some kind of unique corruptions, if you will, or mistakes in translation over the years that have cause some misunderstanding and
Right.
confusion, and we'll kind of have some fun with that in the
Yeah.
next episode. But right now, we want to dive into Exodus chapter 3,
Yes.
the burning bush.
Yes.
Moses being raised up to deliver, and God has a plan for his life,
Yeah.
an incredible plan for his life, and God's calling him out to lead these people out, and he's scared to death,
Moses, man.
overwhelmed to death, and God calls to him out of a bush, and he says, "Don't come any closer. Take off your sandals. This is holy ground."
Holy ground.
And later, God's going to reveal himself. And so, if you want to pick up and read us into that passage, we'll
Sure. I mean, I can pick up in verse 13,
Great.
where Moses says to God, "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' What shall I say to them?" Okay, I have to tell you, I hear myself in Moses all the time. I'm just so I'm not really qualified for this.
Yeah.
Can you please put your stamp of approval on this going, right? I'm going to need some help.
Yeah.
I'm going to need some help. So I read that and it's just so can you tell me, what shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you."
I love that it's he's asking, "What's your name?
Right,
What's your name?"
right,
Because there's a bunch of Elohims out there, man.
right.
And they're going to be asking, is this the neighboring nation's Elohim? Is this the Elohim over that mountain?
Right.
Or the Elohim of the sun?
Well, and also, what is the first thing you do when you're trying to build relationship with someone?
What's your name?
What's your name?
Unless you're a guy, you just hang out and you figure that out
Or
later.
if you're a 5-year-old on the playground, we're best friends now. What's her name? I don't know. But seriously, when you're beginning a relationship with somebody, God knew Moses' name, but Moses didn't yet know his name, right? And so this is, to me, the beginning then also of relationship. I want to know what to call you because I'm probably going to have to call you for help.
Yeah, and I identify, and I think what happens next, what happens when God says this, begins to connect some dots, I think, for how what God has been doing already, that we're going to go back in Genesis and what God has been doing already, and that he is revealing who he is.
Yeah.
And that his name is something of great value, does not even put it into proper terms.
No.
His name is to be revered and honored, and his name has weight, and there's authority and comfort and provision, and there's just such this weight of beauty, transcendent beauty around God's name, and we'll actually talk about that. I think we might talk about that in the next episode of how transcendent beauty there actually is in his name, because again, his name is revealing his character. We'll come to find more and more, but he says, "I am who I am," and I had one professor who said, we come to understand words by their context, right? And what God is saying to Moses is, "I'm the God who will be with you."
Right.
It's an active verb of God's nature and presence with them, and so it's less a static figure of I'm like Popeye. I am who I am. I'm not going to change this who I am. You got to accept me the way I am. Right. But he is unchangeable, but he is the God who is going to be with them in his presence, and he'll put his name on them, and we'll explore all that.
Yeah.
So
we've talked before. I can't remember if it was in a podcast or if this was in a sermon of yours, but of how because of it is an active verb, it can also be translated, "I will be." I will be what I will be.
Yeah.
And not just that I am what I am, but I will be what I will always be.
You don't define me.
Right.
I define me.
Yes.
I will be who I'll be.
Right. Right.
And I love the mystery in that. I love it from this perspective because it's like we have all Scripture to get to know who God is. Moses is like, it'd be great if you just kind of let me know all of it now, but it's going to happen over time.
Yeah. Some of the things that I know about the to be verbs in English is that like the to be verbs are they're intransitive, meaning they do not transfer action from the subject, so God, to another. It is literally like that I am the only one who can be what I am.
Yeah.
So like I can't make you to be whatever I'm saying I am. And that's something really interesting to me specifically about the to be verbs, that they are intransitive. It means it's like within this. I can tell you another noun that I am. I can tell you another, like an adjective that I am.
You can't transfer.
But I can't transfer what I am to you. I can't make you this.
Yeah, and that becomes really interesting as we start to look even a little further in Exodus 20, where we get to the Ten Commandments, and one of the Ten Commandments is about God's name.
Right.
Thou
shalt not take the Lord thy God's name in vain.
In vain, right? And that it's interesting, because it's like, if you go through the Ten Commandments, there's like, you shall have no other gods before me. You don't make any idols. And then people get to number 4, I think it is, which is the misusing God's name or taking His name in vain, and
3.
Is it 3?
3.
Yeah.
Then 4 is Sabbath.
Sabbath, and then we go into the rest 6 things.
Yes.
And we get into that one, and everybody's like, "Well, you should not cuss." It's like just so like everything else seems really weighty, but then it's like, yeah, you shouldn't cuss. But that's not what that means.
No, because literally, like He put it at the top. He put it near the beginning of the 10.
Right. But it does have to do with God, and what you were just saying, that you can't transfer that. I had really for a long time really phrased that, not in like a language thing, but it's like people misusing the name of the Lord. So if someone putting God's stamp of approval, and I'm like, that is you're using the Lord's name in vain. And I still think there is some there's some reality to that.
That's for sure.
100%. I think part of it, as I got further into this and studying, that the verb there, nasa, thou shalt not bear, or thou shalt not misuse the Lord's name. That verb actually means to bear or to carry, to carry the weight. So thou shalt not carry or bear the name of the Lord in an unworthy manner, essentially. You shouldn't misuse it or like worthlessly. So you can't carry the name of the Lord worthlessly and bear that the name of the Lord is actually on it. So and we'll look at this next episode, that God says, my name will be on you. Like it's a promise that he does want to transfer that, and He does want us to model that to others. But there's so much beauty here and richness as we get in. It's just like there's more, there's more. And all this is going to be connecting dots as we go through the episodes.
A full spider web of all of the things where these things come together and how they are linked biblically, like scripturally, but also then how they're linked like in our hearts and in our understanding and perspective of like, oh, actually, if I knew this about God's name, how would I use it? How would I revere it? How would I walk my days if I really had known this about God's name before?
Yeah, because God's character is His name. And we're going to look at lots of different places where it's kind of revealing that more and more to the place that I think we are going to revere His name. We are going to want to bear His name, carry His name in a worthy in a worthy manner. And so, I'm excited to see where this whole conversation goes as we explore it. I'm learning things already about verbs and other things that...
I won't grammar nerd every time.
Yeah.
That's actually probably not true.
But what I want to end with this. I was in a course over the past year, and the professor was talking and was quoting some other theologian that I still have yet to find out who it was, but they were doing this great research on the names of God, and she quoted this author and said that the name of God, his name is a sanctuary to be sought outside the sanctuary. And I was like, whoa. I need to settle in on that for a second.
Yeah.
God's name is a sanctuary to be sought outside the sanctuary. And I was talking with a friend here recently. He was going through a really tough time. He's kind of lost his church family and dreams of the future. And I was able to bring that to him and encourage him. Like, and all you're going through, and like, the sanctuary feels very different from you, but like, God is close to you.
Yes.
God's name is a sanctuary to be sought. And so you're going to come to know him and his character in this season like never before. And I wanted to leave us with that lasting thought that his name in itself, it reveals his character, and he shows up in who he is in our life in very real moments where we need to know his name.
Yeah.
Like Moses was. Like, I need to be able to call on you. Who can I say? And then we're gonna learn all these wonderful, beautiful, honor-filled, powerful names of the Lord.
Yeah. And then we will be able to wield them rightly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, next episode we're going to talk about when it hasn't been wielded so rightly.
Right, what that looks like. Well, we are thrilled that you have joined us back. We're glad to be back. We're glad that you came back to the Fathom Beyond Sunday podcast. If you're looking for ways to connect, you can always text the keyword Fathom to 97,000 and follow the prompts. You can email Christina at fathom.church if you want to give feedback, if you want to let us know how the podcast is opening up conversation, because we can't do the full conversation here. We are hoping that on Fathom Beyond Sunday, this is starting a conversation and you're carrying it into, Monday through Saturday. So you can always email Christina at fathom.church. Let us know how it's helping you. And it's brand new on the video portion. So like and subscribe and share that.
Yeah, there you go. You're YouTube ready.
Okay, cool. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you back here next week.